Welcome everyone to this improvised talk by me. Is anyone? No? Very well prepared. I thought, since this is the Agile Track, I'll have a little talk about how we approach software development at Pivotal Labs. I'm not in Pivotal Labs, I'm just in Pivotal as a pre-sales, but the way that we work at Pivotal Labs is a lot like Agile, but not quite like Agile. So I'll just give our perspective on software development. I think this is a pretty salesy presentation, so bear with me. I'll just skip the sales stuff. Maybe not all of you know us. Pivotal has been helping companies for over 25 years to create software. It was one of the first consultancy companies to actually go and help Google do stuff. So they were the first external consultants at Google. And they've done lots of software development in Palo Alto and Silicon Valley before we became Pivotal. So then it was actually just called Pivotal Labs. We have some offices, blah, blah, blah. We have some clients. So these are the common problems we see in clients. It takes forever to release new features. Many of you can recognize this. And the business sees opportunities to sell better or to sell to new customers, but they just cannot respond fast enough. So they're not fast enough to respond to changes. Sometimes the products that they build are not what their customers want, so that they just waste a lot of money on effort that is useless, basically. And the waterfall approach, as many of you know, is not an ideal approach for software development, because by the time that the product is ready, the market already changed, or the expectations and demands changed. These are common problems you hear everywhere. So we try to approach software development from a balanced team perspective. So what does a balanced team mean? It's a bit like, it's very similar to the high-performance teams from Ordina, actually. It's just bringing together different roles in a balanced way so that the users get the product that they want, actually. So they want to make the product. These are some basic features from user-centric design, if you've heard about that. And the feasibility of a product is something that the development team can decide on. The design team, or the people closest to the end user, can actually check if this is a desirable product, or make sure it's a desirable product. The product management will also see if it is viable for the business. You can make a product that's very good for the customer, but it doesn't actually make any money for the business, so that's also not what you want. And we have some ways to deal with this, or how we approach this. So what we do in Pivotal Labs, so this is like a separate environment where we take our clients for specific projects with specific goals, and we take them into our labs for 4, 6, or 8 weeks, and we show them how we do it. So we take them in a separate environment, because that's taking away all the distractions from their current enterprise environments. They cannot be bothered with emails or other teams coming and asking questions, or project managers that meet them. They're totally separated, and they can fully focus on creating the product. So extreme programming, most of you probably know. We are very opinionated on how we do this. We do paired programming all the time. So we have a fixed schedule. We start at 9, we end at 6. And at 9:06, to be very specific, we do a small stand-up, about maximum 5 minutes. So it's a shortened version of the usual Agile stand-up of 15 minutes. And it's just talking about what are some of the needs of the people for that day, what are some, they call it the helps, who needs some helps, and what is interesting that someone knows about, interesting about the work they do or in general, and what everyone's going to do that day. So very short, 5 minutes stand-up, Then we pair for like 3 hours until noon. We have a really healthy meal for about an hour. So we really see that you need a rest as well. If you pair programming for 3 hours, you need some breaks. Usually there are some ping pong tables or something in the office where people can have a break. And in the afternoon, it's also just 3 hours of pairing again, and then you go home. So the people that work in the labs, they actually hardly do any work after 6. And that's the plan as well, because working for, or pairing for 6 hours a day can be really tiring, and it's really hard to stay focused if you do other stuff after work as well. Really short iterations is important. We usually do in the labs 1 week iterations. So at the end of the week, we at least once a week we deploy to a production-like environment or even to production. And in fact, more than often we deploy more than once a week to production when we do these large engagements. So continuous integration, continuous development, deployment is very important. That's actually one of the first things we do is set up the CI/CD pipeline and make sure that we can deploy to production in one push of a button. User-centered design I already talked about a little bit. Before creating a product, you want to make sure that you make the product that the customer wants. So we do user interviews, much like Ordina does with Clockwork. Those names are pretty far in my head already. Clockwork is doing lots of user interviews. They ask users what they want to have in the product. They do studies, so they do all this kind of stuff. But in the labs, it's all in one. So they also create prototypes the first weeks and then iterate on that. But we always try to make a product that is finished, or the features that are needed are production ready and are usable. And then you iterate and improve. And we always try to live by the lean processes, so that's also a little bit covered in our 3 statements, like the mission statements of the company. Always do the right thing, do what works, and be kind is just a general way of working with each other. You gotta be kind. You don't have to be friendly to everyone, but you have to be kind. So experimentation is really required if you want to create a great product, and you need to be able to fail as well. A little bit more about Lean. I think most of the people that are interested in Agile have definitely heard about Lean. It's basically a way of decreasing risk. That's the biggest thing. Reducing waste is also a byproduct of that. That's awesome. And we want to do validated learning. So you want to base your learning on metrics as much as possible. So as I said, waterfall development can be, well, everyone has probably experienced it, planning up front, designing up front, making giant big plans that fall in the water at some time. And it just takes way too long to validate your results. So everyone kind of guess that this is not the right approach anymore. What you see in Waterfall is that the risk only increases over time until the end of the release, and then usually it doesn't end up well. What you do with short iterations, just as in Agile or Scrum, you try to do iterations and deliver a product every few weeks or week, and that's how you manage and decrease risk. So after building a product, each week you try to measure what the effect is or what the outcome is, and you try to translate that into learnings and then build again. So Agile, same way, short iterations, build, measure, learn, that's the cycle. You try to create a product not in the first way, like trying to get some feature that nobody uses, or try, maybe a quick question, who has started a project by creating, the first use case was the user needs to log in. Some of you, okay. So I've seen lots of projects where my first use case was the user needs to log in. Yeah, why? You log in and then you see nothing. I've seen this a couple of times. So that would be this approach. Yeah, don't do that. So first try to make some features that are usable and just build on top of them. More about user-centric design. I think I'll skip this one. We talked about desirable products, valuable products, and if it's feasible and easy to use. Skip that one as well. Yeah. So extreme programming is more close to my feature set. So the first thing was that the problem that most enterprises had was it's difficult to change or to react to the changing markets. So we need to be agile. What does agile mean? It's agility to react to change. So that's what, it's not just a practice of, I want to be agile. What does it mean? You need to be able to change. So your code needs to be able to change, your product needs to be able to change very rapidly because the world changes faster and faster as well. If you look at extreme programming, it ensures that you can push out features in a consistent way and with a consistent quality. So extreme programming is also, a part of it is also test-driven development. So write your tests first and then write your code, your actual code. So this is also a big hallmark of extreme programming. Self-organizing teams. I've seen some companies that say that they have sort of self-organizing teams, but it's really hard to get this correctly. I don't really know what the best recipe is, but if you can decide in your own team how the product evolves together with like product management and within your team and how it is deployed, how it is operated, then I think you're pretty good on the way of towards self-organizing teams. Great product that we have is Pivotal Tracker, and we usually use Pivotal Tracker just like Jira. It's basically Jira, but a little bit simplified and more geared towards our approach. So the engineers, they work on small stories. The stories are usually a half a day or a day's work, so we don't create stories that are 1 week stories or something. We don't do that because you want to see progress and you want to really narrow down the feature that you're adding, or the user story needs to be really small. And then we release that frequently. Did we solve those problems? Well, with all the stuff that I told you, those problems should be solved. Maybe talk a little bit more about how we then engage with clients on this. So this is our approach, how we take clients to the labs and how we help them get all these practices, or learn all these practices, and then spread those practices in their enterprise. So we want to enable them. We don't want to stay at clients for multiple years. We don't specialize in services, so we don't want to do like 2-3 year projects. That's more for consultancy companies, or companies that want to put people in teams and want to help with execution of projects. We want to be the enabler that learns the company how to do it themselves or with partners. So what we usually do is we have some kind of discovery phase where we try to figure out what the problem is, how many problems there are, and try to get the biggest problem first. What are the biggest pain points? What are the biggest problems that will have the biggest impact? And then we try to frame a solution, and then we start iterating. So this is also very similar to the Clockwork approach, how they approach projects. I just think that it might be good to combine this better. So not an upfront discovery and framing with a separate team, and then an execution part also with a separate team. I think if you have a mixed team that does this constantly, that's a better approach in my opinion. So those both scenarios, or those both actions that we do, you should preferably do this in the same team, so that everyone is aware of the problem and the solution. Yeah, so as I said, we have daily stand-up. They say 1 minute, but it's usually like 5 minutes. So as in product management, there's a product manager, there is a backlog, we still use a backlog. The backlog is just much, filled with user stories that are much smaller than usual, and they estimate stories, so estimation goes really quickly as well, and then we iterate on the backlog. The retrospective, also very important. We also do it weekly. It doesn't have to be super long, but feedback is something that Pivotal thinks is really important, and they really live that. So anything that you do, people will give you honest feedback. It's done in a kind way, so you can give constructive feedback to someone if something was not well or not well done, but you should do it in a kind way. I'd rather have feedback if something was bad in a kind way than just no feedback, or feedback that is brought in a rude way or an aggressive way. That's totally not what you want. So a day in the real life, yeah, they already told us they didn't know what slides were going to come, so here we have it again. This is a typical day. We pair, we lunch, we pair, and then we all go home. For pairing, we try to create the ideal scenario in this lab, because we want to be as productive as possible. So it's, for a lot of big clients, it's a really big change from their day-to-day life in the company. A lot of companies are now creating these kind of very open, highly productive workspaces with big PC screens. And what you might notice as well is that every desk has two keyboards. So there's 2 keyboards, 2 mouses. You can both have a mouse. It can be annoying in the beginning, but it can be really handy. There's 2 keyboards actually. So, usually one is talking and one is coding. So then you keep really focused on your task. There's also a lot of clients that want to create this lab in their company or in a separate building. Volkswagen has done this. They had a Volkswagen lab, and I think they are now spreading it in their entire organization. This way of working, and they are now also creating a lab in Audi in Ingolstadt. So Audi is also creating this digital lab, which is made in the same idea or way as a Pivotal lab. And there's also Ford Motor Company in the US that's doing this. So usually there's really good food there. You can go and get food any time of the day, so it can affect your weight after some weeks. And in the afternoon, more pairing, but there have to be breaks in between because pairing for 4 or 5 hours is not possible. And then we go. So how we work together with clients. So every iteration we test with the end users. So it's really important to show your product to the end user, not just to the business stakeholder, because they don't know what the user wants. They think they know what the user wants, but they don't know. So it's only validated or valid when the end user says it's valid. So that's really important. And usually in a lot of companies you have short iterations, you have demos to the stakeholders, the business stakeholders, they're very happy, and then you tell them, okay, when can we show this to the end user? And they're like, no, you don't show it to the end user, it's not finished yet. Well, yeah, it should be finished product every week, so you should be able to show it to the end user. And this fear of showing not completely ready product is something I just don't get. Why wouldn't you show it sooner than later? If you get feedback faster, it will be better for everyone. Test-driven development, write test before write code. I already mentioned this. How do the teams look like? So what the client does is they have half of the team, Pivotal has half of the team, and then they pair up constantly, learn, they rotate a little bit during the assignment, and they try to co-locate, so really sitting in the same place is important. Everyone in the team, so this is what I told about self-organizing team. The team in its whole should be completely autonomous and should be able to steer the product in the direction that it thinks is best. If you have other people hovering around it, then if you're not really autonomous, then you cannot build a product that you think is best. Co-location is, and I don't know how much time I had, I don't know how much time I have left, but this is basically the talk. Thank you. Any questions? Yes?
When you say you want to base your learnings on metrics, is it about performance, measuring performance or system?
It can be many things. So before you start the assignment, we create these so-called OKRs, so objectives and key results. What are the objectives of making this product? What are the key results that you think are important? So it can be performance, because maybe we have a very slow system and we want to give the customer a really fast system, really smooth experience. So then we can say in advance, okay, we're going to measure page loads, or we're going to measure processing speed in the back end, or how we can scale. So these are determined beforehand. It can also be just like, we want to test user experience. So it will just be like, we give the end users a survey, and if they give us 8 out of 10 or more in the survey at the end, then we're doing the right thing. So it's determined beforehand what the objectives and key results are, and then you try, so they have to be measurable. By definition, they have to be measurable. So then afterwards, you can actually measure them. That's the idea. So it can be performance, software metrics like happiness. At some company, they made an app, and then they asked like, how happy were you to use this product? And you have to have like 1 to 5 stars or something. So, and then they said we need at least 4 stars. Some also just look at the App Store and look at the stars in the App Store. So a lot of companies use those metrics. But it's determined beforehand. That's the important part. Anything else? So we also, so what do we think about mold programming? We do mold programming. Who doesn't know what mold programming is? Okay, quite a lot of people. So mold programming is like pair programming, but it's with more than 2 people. So usually you have like this desk which is set up higher, and you have a couple of people, more than 2, that look at someone who's coding. It looks even sillier than pair programming, right? From a project manager perspective, it's like now it's 3 people doing one task, and who's paying for that? But actually, our ex-colleague and my current colleague Andreas has done this a lot of times at Rabobank, for example, where those people who need to learn the new practices, best practices and ways of developing, the ways of deploying to the platform, etc., they really have to learn how to do that. They have to be enabled. So Andreas, for example, will stand at his desk all day or all morning and just talk together with 4 or 5 experts, because they are experts in their business domain, but they just don't know how to do it, how to do development in a new way. So he'll just guide them through. They talk. Everyone agrees on the current approach. Maybe they agree on how they will implement an algorithm or something, and then they just develop it, or he shows them how to develop this. And they do it in the same way as they do in the labs. So what Andreas, for example, is doing is he's doing application transformation. So this is actually going to the client and trying to modernize their applications. If they have monoliths, he tries to decompose this monolith into some microservices, just trying to make their development ways more agile, more modern. So mold programming is a big part of that. So it's a big part of the enabling. Because this team, they were called the A team, and beforehand, they told the A team, you are all the guys that are very open-minded, you want to learn how to work in a new way, but after this assignment, we will split you up. So these guys, they became quite tight, but they knew that they were going to be split up because they will be split up in 2 new teams. So half experts and half novices, and these teams have now split up again and again. And that's how you spread it through an organization. So now I think they have 200 DevOps teams working on the platform, and they're just modernizing and moving apps to the platform, for example. So mobbing is a big part of it. In the back?
One of the difficult things with C programming is to get away from roles.
Yes.
I was wondering how you work with testing. Does everybody test, not just unit testing?
No. So not everyone has to be able to do everything, because that's like a common conception that some people have about we have to go in a DevOps culture, we have mixed teams, so everyone needs to be able to do anything. That's just not possible. And everybody knows that, I think. But even the testers, if there's 2 testers on a team, they pair, or a tester and a developer pair, or a designer and a developer pair. So sometimes you even have like a developer with a designer sitting in front of NetBeans or Eclipse or IntelliJ, and the guy is developing, and then the designer is asking questions. He, of course, doesn't know anything about designing, so he asks really basic, stupid questions. But it helps them to understand why are you doing this, why are you implementing it this way. They can bring new insights, and it's like 1 + 1 is 3 kind of thing. So having these mixed teams means that everyone can have 1 or more roles, but everyone pairs with each other mixed role. Right? So yeah.
With a mock program?
In one program you can include like you can have 2 developers, a product manager, and then a designer, for example, and they will work on a common problem. Yes?
How do you convince customers to actually patient problem management? Because that seems to be a problem.
The IT managers are usually kind of scared of this kind of thing, like when people talk to end users. But then when you ask the business people, they're usually very eager to get the product in the end user's hands, because they know the end user, they know how they will react. It's like, yeah, this looks awesome, just show them and we'll see what they want, and maybe they want changes. And if you integrate the business, if you pull the business into the conversation, then it goes really fast to the so it's usually the IT management or the traditional IT business stakeholders that try to keep it away until it's completely finished. They're like a little bit scared because of how they were trained or how their experiences were in the past with this. But we're not working this way anymore in the world. Every app needs to look awesome on your phone. We're used to that, the end user is used to that, so we cannot give them half products anymore. Anything else? All right, then, yes, we're done.